Next up on the program, we've got Nate Knobloch, who I have the pleasure to work with in Wulf cattle every week. Him and I started about the same time, and I'm not going to give him a title because he works right across the whole beef segment anymore, and he just does a great job, and he gets out and sees you guys and helps me give me feedback on what we're needing to breed for and that type of thing to work for you guys out in the country. So I'll turn it over to Nate.
Thank you, Casey. With that, I'm just going to share a little bit here this evening and discuss the functionality and why Limousine cattle work in the feed yard, and kind of just play on the same basis that Matt Spangler and Travis has already talked about on the cow-calf side of crossbreeding. So why do Limousine cattle work in the feed yard, and what is it that gives them, or why we feel there is a competitive advantage in feeding Limousine cross cattle? We'll step through them one at a time here. Number one, they work extremely well in value-added markets. Also, they have an increased feed efficiency and heavier carcasses. We can take the cattle to heavier weight, heavier marketed weight. They have competitive quality grades. Now, notice I did not say they are the top grading, highest grading cattle, but we will get into that a little bit later, how you need to make the cattle very functionable, very marketable to the consumer, so we cannot solely get rid of quality grade, but in feeding cattle to very, very high quality grades and putting a lot of fat on cattle is extremely inefficient in the feed yard. Probably the largest advantage of the Limousine cattle is the uniform lean carcasses and the manageable yield grades that we get from the cattle. We'll step through it one at a time. Like I said, value-added programs. The crossbred cattle work in the value-added programs because they perform closer to cattle that have implants in them that would not be crossbred, or to the national average of cattle on feed. We track each and every closeout that we do have, and our Limousine cross cattle will compete with average cattle in the United States that are implanted, yet we are able to sell our cattle into higher markets and pass that premium on back to the rancher. Gap Natural would be the highest valued premium market that we are marketing fed cattle into. Verified Natural goes right along with that. And then the NHTC market, which is an European Union market versus the natural markets being domestically. Just one thing to, I guess, everybody can go home and think about or take with them when they leave is the natural thing does not seem to be going away. Travis talked about it. It seems like, I guess, people they call millennials want to know where their food was raised, how it was raised. There is a growing concern in meat production and animal production about the use of antibiotics and therapeutical antibiotics. The natural thing seems to be growing. The NHTC market, you're dealing with politics, trade, the US dollar versus the euro, and it just seems like natural, along with some of the retailers I put on this slide. Now, they're domestic markets, and like I said, they're not going away, whether we think so or not, and not everybody's going to raise cattle for that, but the cattle that you guys are making in this room do fit very well into these high-end markets and value-added programs. And I guess the other piece that I wanted to share on this slide is, if people want natural products, are they going to get that? It's going to be very challenging for them to get that in the pork production and poultry production, where the cattle or the species are raised in confinement buildings, whereas cattle are raised in their natural environment through a large percentage of their production life. I guess my question is, could that be a way to increase beef demand and prices versus other proteins? And like I said, we have, what does the future look like for the beef industry? Is there a way to create more value and more demand going into these value-added programs? The feed yard advantage, we see increased feedlot performance. We can take cattle to heavier weights. and they efficiently convert feed to carcass weight. There's a lot of people in the industry that still measure cattle performance on live weight. However, 99% of the people are still getting paid by what's hanging on the rail. And if they're not getting paid by what's hanging on the rail, Tyson or whoever is buying your cattle live is protecting themselves so they don't get hurt if the cattle don't dress. So basically, no matter how your cattle are sold, the carcass is a big deal, and that's how the final value is realized. The Carcass Advantage, coincidentally, I put this slide up here. These aren't Travis's calves, but the carcass on the far left, the shorter carcass there was a straight Angus steer. The middle carcass was a 50% Limousine Angus cross steer, and the carcass on the right was a purebred Limousine steer. The carcass, the straight Angus carcass had twice the fat that the Limousine carcass had. Was also the Angus carcass was considerably smaller. We see a dramatic increase in dressing percent in our Limousine cross calves versus straight Angus cattle. 64.5, 65 is very common for our cattle to dress versus 63. It's roughly 20 pounds of carcass. Multiply that by selling carcass weight currently for $250 to $260 a pound, $50 a head times 50,000 head. It's a very big deal for us to continue to feed Limousine cross cattle. Also, as the next speaker from Tyson will touch on, the reduced trim and the higher value retail product, or more higher valued retail product that is available on carcasses that have lower yield grades. With that, I guess I'll turn it over to Tyson and let them tell you why Limousine cattle work on the processing side.
Thanks, Nate. That's just a little bit about our feeding philosophy and what we like to see in cattle that we feed. So now we'll turn it over to the ultimate expert, the guy that sees them in the end, and that's Bob Scherer, who's with us from Tyson. He is the Procurement Liaison, which means that he does the communications between us and at end point, the plant, that type of thing. It lets us know that we're doing the right things day in and day out.
All right, thank you. First of all, I want to acknowledge David Knoll, cattle buyer for Tyson, 40 plus years. David's territory is up here, works close. Stand up, David. No, stand up. That's what we want to see. And before we get into the slides here, one thing I want to share about Tyson, IBP, we're a proud group. We employ 61 people in our department. We kill 28,500 head a day. We're on target to market just under 6.2 million head this year as a company. And to tell you about the tenure of our buyers, the average age is 52. We have combined years of service of just under 1,500 years. Yet that's even old for me. Average years of experience in the business, 24. And currently, we range from 1.3 years to 52 years experience. 52 years would take you all the way back to the inception of IBP in March of 1961 in Denison, Iowa. So that's pretty impressive. To get back to Travis, your cattle average 86% plus. I can tell you right now, national average of all cattle grading, including the program cattle. Whoever's doing it, we're doing it. National might be doing it, Cargill, whoever. National average over probably the last month has been about 75% choice and prime. So that tells you how exceptional the cattle are. We've done, over the course of this last year, somewhere in the 40,000 with Wulf cattle. Those cattle are all above. One term, or I should say acronym, we use to describe top-end customers, suppliers of ours, is VMR. It's a value managed relation. So by all you guys coming to the bull sale and attending here tonight, you were all considered VMRs. We have finished feeders in the house from Nebraska. John and Diana Wubenhorse at KCC. Exceptional feed yard, exceptional finished feeders. We do a lot of work with Wulf Cattle Company down there. If you haven't had the chance to get out to any of these yards, I highly recommend it. Do the tour. Phenomenal yards, phenomenal staff working at them. So that's my spiel for IBP and us, or Tyson. We were talking about yield grades here and quality grades. Quality is basically how much marbling is intermingled within the red meat. You can read it. Ideally, cutability. In our programs, we reward the leaner end like anybody else would. So the target yield grades of yield grade 1 to yield grade 3. In the 5 yield grades, 1 through 5, the lean ratio or percent of lean, additional lean, is just about 11.5% difference. So yield grade 1 is have more lean marketable meat than a yield grade 5. And the differences between the yield grades, a yield grade 1 dropping off to a yield grade 2 or a little bit fatter animal is about 2.5%. The 2 to a 3 is a little over 2.5. And by the time you get up to a yield grade 5, the difference is almost 11.5% more usable lean meat or less waste on a yield grade 1 versus a yield grade 5. You know, we push ideally the perfect carcass for us in a plant would be a prime yield grade 1. And number 1, because it's going to come back on your grids or on your, however we decide to buy the cattle, it's going to give the producer back the most value, and in the same turn, we are creating more value for us. This is a little snapshot of the business we did with Wulf Cattle Company this year. It's phenomenal. You know, when we put all the numbers together and compared data with Nate and Robin, and it says it right there, Wulf Cattle has 50% less yield grades 4s and 5s. So that says a lot about the breed itself. I will never stand up here and say anything bad about CAB because they had the world's greatest marketing plan in 1978. But it just shows you how good the crossbreeding efforts have been over the last 30 years. One thing about our business, and if you look at it about a little over a year ago, we took out or quit accepting cattle fed with the beta agonist zilpaterol. And what I think you've seen is the true genetics come out of the cattle as an industry. You've seen genetics improve along the way. But more importantly, you get to see the end product. And for us, for doing the natural programs, doing the NHTC programs, a variety of other programs that I could list and bore you all with. Like Nate touched on the millennials, the way their thought process is. Everybody's going to want a niche in this market. And some of the big chain lines we do business with currently, there will be more and more. And so we highly recommend looking at GAP. It's going to be the future on the natural side. That's about all I got. I appreciate everybody coming out. Appreciate you having us.